Alrighty. Hello, beautiful people. It's Quinton from the Hunters of Light. We're having our first live panel discussion. And just as I said that, I realized that I should really have quit all my applications. So you don't hear ping, bong, bong, etc. I told everyone else to do that and I left all mine open. So, right. I think we're good to go now. It's our first live panel discussion. So bear with me. I'm sorting out technical things on the fly. But I think the reason why I wanted to do this is really just to try and provide an opportunity for those watching to ask questions, or pose questions to working professionals in the industry. And obviously, because it's Women's Month, we needed to have a full panel of women on discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a quick zoom around first. We've got Emma O'Brien, and everyone is going to be giving a little bit more info and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to do a quick little zoom around. We've got Emma O'Brien, we've got Tarryn Hatchett, Ingrid Irsigler, Melanie Bentley, and Grethe Rosseaux. And me, you know me. Cool. So I think at this point in time, I just want to check and see that we're live over there. I think we are. Okay, cool. So guys, if you've got any questions, please feel free to post them. I think we're going to have quite a nice little chat here. So I think let's start off with just a little bit about our panel members, and we're gonna start off with Emma, and each of the participants has got 3 images that they've selected for whatever reason. Could be best shot, worst shot, most controversial, most difficult to get, etc. And I think it's quite nice to try and get a little bit of insight based on that. But I think if we can also just give a little bit of background as to who you are, where you've come from in the sort of photography industry, and how you've gotten to be where you are today. So let's start off with Emma. And while I get that going, we're going to do a little bit of sharing of this and a bit of, oh man, the technical stuff here is doing my head in. All right, so let's make this nice and big. All right, there we go.
So can I take over?
Yeah, go for it.
Sort of. Hi, everybody. I'm Emma. I've been working as a professional photographer for 17 years now. And I was always fascinated with kind of documentary photography and storytelling. And one of my very favorite photographers is W. Eugene Smith. And a big part of his work was capturing emotion in a very compassionate way through the images he shot. And it's quite amusing when I tell you that I went from like being fascinated with documentary photography to starting my career as a wedding photographer. You couldn't pay me any money to shoot weddings now. I retired from wedding photography when I moved to South Africa in 2009. And the images I've actually picked to share with you are all they're all personal work images. So no, not anything that I've been paid to shoot. You couldn't pay me any money to shoot weddings. I can hear myself.
It's me. Carry on.
So I've just shared some images with you. So my work's very much about capturing personality and capturing character, and I guess telling stories to a certain extent. So I spend a lot of time photographing dogs, so I thought, let me throw a person in here because I do also occasionally photograph people. So this is an image from a little series that I came up with an idea for, and this is old. This is probably 8 years old, this picture. Now, I'm very good at coming up with ideas. I struggle a bit sometimes with the follow through. So I'm a big proponent of always having a creative side project on the go, but sometimes life gets in the way. So this was a series I called the Laughter series, because I just wanted to, we're so used to seeing portraits of people looking, I guess in pictures, we always want to look perfect and everything else. And I just wanted to create a series of images of people like really hosing themselves laughing, and just kind of capturing those expressions. So this is one of my friends. We've been friends since we were 11. And she was one of my first victims for this series. And,
I like that, victims.
And she, a lot of these sessions ended up with lots of wine afterwards, you know. So she actually came through for this session and she walked in and she's like, I'm actually having a really bad day. I don't think I'm really up for this at all. And I started telling this really awful joke that I'd heard, and she just started crying with laughter. And it's just so well. I just love it with the tears and the crinkled up face, and it's just that kind of that real moment. I guess it's just very spontaneous. So, which I think is quite cool.
It's very cool. I love it.
You can slide on to the next one if you like. All right, so this was another set of personal work called the Black Series. This is where my dog obsession starts to arrive. This guy is called Guinness, and I love this really judgy look he gave me in this shoot here. And this was a series of I'm often shooting shelter dogs and rescue dogs. So I came up with an idea of doing a series of black dogs against a black backdrop, which actually, you know, I'm not the first person to do it, but it kind of came about for me. I had someone bring a black pug in, and they loved these images. So I thought, I think there's something here with this, but how do I crowbar my rescue dogs into this? It's like all I think about most of the time. So I came up with the idea of this series of photographing black dogs against a black backdrop. But instead of going at it in a sort of negative way, because I think we're so bombarded with this is really sad and look at these poor dogs, and I actually think often people just tune out from stuff because it's sad to look at. So I thought, how do I get this message across? And the message being that black dogs are the least likely to be adopted if they end up at a shelter, and the most likely to be put to sleep. So it's a worldwide statistic. They're people generally don't pick them. So that was sort of also part of the project. But instead of making it sad, I captioned all of these like they were putting themselves on Tinder. So his little caption was Guinness, I think, found living under a trailer, judgmental as all hell, found living under a trailer, but is in no way trashy. And it just kind of the whole series had these little captions on it. And I almost didn't share it like that, because I just thought, you know, I photograph dogs. Does anybody really take that seriously as an art form, you know, really? And if I accompany these images with these sort of almost a bit silly captions, am I going to have people thinking I'm less of an artist? You know, does it kind of devalue the work? And like I say, I almost didn't share it because I just thought, God, I run the risk of looking really silly here. And actually, it was what made the project. And I put this onto Board Panda, and it went viral around the world. And I think the captions in combination with the pictures were what made that happen. I suspect if I just shared the pictures on their own, I don't think it would have caught people's attention quite so much. So for me, this was a really big lesson in being courageous enough to share your work very authentically. And it's something that I, you know, when I'm coaching, I try and help people do, because I think that's what makes you really stand out in what is a very crowded marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the look. I'm trying to work out whether he's judging you, your gear, the lighting setup, yep. You know, etc.
Studio. Who knows cool. What I was wearing? Yes. All right. You can go to the next one. All right. So I think this, for me, again, this is a very old image. This was shot 10 years ago, in fact. And I do a lot of, this is, I think, where my love of documentary photography, I was able to explore it when I moved to South Africa. And I do a lot of work with an organization called Claw. It's where most of my dogs come from. And they provide veterinary care to people living in impoverished areas in the West Rand, who have dogs, but need some help with being able to care for them properly. And you'll have a lot of people say, well, you know, if people are poor and they don't have money, they shouldn't have dogs. And the fact is that we've coexisted with dogs for thousands of years. And I don't think you can deny somebody the right to the companionship you get from a dog. And we were out on a little outreach day doing vaccinations. And this is a little informal settlement called Hopefield, I think, and it was tiny. And I was just busy trotting around with my camera. It was so small. And I saw this guy walking down the hill to my right with these two dogs. And he'd obviously got home from work or whatever, wherever he'd been, and was taking these guys out for a walk. And I just, I watched him, and I shot as he was coming towards me, and I shot as he walked past me. And I just got this shot. I just thought, it's just sheer joy. These dogs are happy, he's happy. And it just kind of summed up for me how wonderful Claw is, what a wonderful thing they're doing for the community. And it's why I'm such a big supporter of theirs. But I think images like this are important for breaking down stereotypes that people might have and misconceptions that people might have. Because I just think this sums up dog ownership to a T, really. And I think that what the great thing about this as well is that I could not have set this up and made this happen. Absolutely no way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. Really enjoy that. So yeah, I mean, I think the things that you talked about authenticity and that sort of thing. I mean, I think it's important to find those sorts of things in your images, but then also taking a look at images that you, for example, with the pups on the black background. You could have gone so many different ways with that, but I mean, personally, I think that the captions give it that personality and are really what gives it that gives it the legs. If you didn't have that, I think there might be it's a nice picture of a dog and etc. But you combine it with what you see there and the kind of things that that people will then take out of it. They go, yeah, look, it has actually got a look that's quite interesting or funny or whatever. So I think that's very, very cool. All right, so let's see who's next on the PowerPoint side of things here. All right, I'm going to share this thing like crazy. Grethe, I think it's you.
I think so.
Let's see what we've got here. All right, there we go. You see that there?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, same thing for you. We've got the stage, 3 images, fabulous. Most controversial, whatever it is. Let us give us a bit of insight into who, what, where, and why, and a bit about these images.
Hi, I'm Grethe. So, for me, photography and drawing, which is where I started in my art career, are very similar, in the sense of light is the driving force to me behind both of those. And something that I continuously say to, be it beginner photographers or students, is that your medium is light. And that is the part that I enjoy the most. And I enjoy creating with light the most. And I like to say that I am a more is more photographer. I like to do these elaborate stories, and that is partially why I fell in love with editorial and fashion and beauty photography, because you get to create these elaborate stories with beautiful garments and amazing settings, and it's just absolutely so much fun for me to do. So this image, I always say, if anyone asks me which shoots are my favorite ones, my answer is always the difficult ones. And this shoot was definitely not without its challenges. So just a little bit of background for this. Very important for me, the shoot's name is Phoenix, and the symbolism of the Phoenix is extremely personal and important to me. And when a friend of mine called me up and said, hey, there's been, the fire in Gordons Bay at the time. It looks really cool over there. Do you want to go and take a look after the fire and see if we can shoot there? And I absolutely jumped at the chance. I didn't really have a concept at that point. And then I realized, oh, wait, I've been sitting with this Phoenix idea in my head for the longest time. And I got a stylist, I got a makeup artist, and I got a fabulous model, and we went up the mountain. And when we got there, I don't know if anyone here knows or are from the Helderberg or just Cape Town in general, but the wind is absolutely unreal in this part of the world. And that day was Gordon's Bay's best, basically.
Putting on a show
And
for you.
absolutely. And we showed up, and the makeup artist did an incredible job, with loose pigment flying everywhere and trying to tame the model's hair and all of that. And everyone just pulled through it like champs. And what happened in the end was this absolutely hard, dramatic style that just worked so well. And I love how the model just leaned into that. And she realized, what the story is and what I'm trying to portray. And we just, threw in like the one like hardcore, very strong pose after the other. And of course, needless to say, my love of sparkles just showed up, of course. So yeah, this one is again one of those shoots, as I've said, my favorite ones are the difficult ones. And also my love of really harsh, direct sunlight is also very, very, very prevalent in this image.
Very cool. So I've got a question from Stephanie Esterhazen. And I suppose everyone can jump in here if they want to, but how important is it to always link a narrative to an image? Should we keep the questions till afterwards? What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think do questions at the end.
Cool. Let's do that. Okay. Sorry, let's jump onto our next image there. There we go.
Cool. So with this image, I'm incredibly proud of this one, but I want to preface this image by saying photography to me is 90% observation and 10% clicking buttons. And I mentioned previously how important light is to me. And once again, this is a location that I knew extremely well. It's from my hometown is Wellington, and this is the Tall Monument in Paarl, which means a lot to me, like just growing up and being surrounded by that kind of visual imagery my entire life. But this is for Judith Atelier that I shot, one of my absolute favorite designers. And this image actually made it to Vogue UK in print, which I'm incredibly proud of. And again, this image is really the culmination, is that correct, the word? But it really is just coming together of a perfect model, perfect circumstances, waiting for the right light, for, the late afternoon sunset coming through those two spires. It was just seeing everything come together and every small little element working together. And it's also that whole adage of, I think it was Neil Gaiman who said that something along the lines of luck exists, but the harder you work, the luckier you get. And this image to me is an absolute personification of that.
Yeah, I think Gary Play also said the more you practice, the luckier you get, or something like that as well.
Yes.
Very cool. Now I love this image that just so much movement happening in there. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I absolutely love movement in my shots, because I think for us as photographers, especially for us as editorial and fashion photographers, because we have to sell garments and we need to show them in not only a very clear and a very clear way, to portray the garment, to be attractive for buyers and, for clients, other kind of private clients and so on. It is really important to try and elevate the garment in a way that tells its story. And for me, trying to put movement and atmosphere and, contrast and color into my images is extremely important. And I feel, for me, it's a personal challenge to see how much movement I can put into a static image.
Very cool. I love that.
Once again, 90% observation and 10% clicking buttons, and also testament to the fact that you don't really need a bunch of ridiculous gear to do a really cool image, because this one on the street one summer evening in Sea Point, surrounded by everything from, hipsters to drag queens on the street. It was an absolute party. And we just saw a bunch of LED lights in the storefront, and I had my phone to reflect said LEDs on camera left. And I just told the model, just look over your shoulder. And this is the result of it. And it's still one of my favorite images to this day.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot to be said for, experience, you get into a situation and because you've done so many of this type of shoot, you see the light, you see the background, and there's a shot there that you didn't plan for, but there it is waiting for you. And the more experience you have, the easier it is to capitalize on that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people, photographers, a really important skill to learn is to learn to look for light, to learn to appreciate light, and to learn how to understand it. I don't think light is something we can necessarily bend to our will, but we can try our very best to do that and to make it work for us. But honestly, it's just learn to appreciate light, look at it, and learn to see it. And you don't always need a camera to do that either. Very important.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a thing, and we'll kind of once we've been through everyone's images, we'll kind of look at the skills to have, and et cetera, because I definitely think that there's a couple of things that if you make sure that you've got that skill sorted, it's just going to make your working life a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
All right, Ingrid Irsigler, whose surname I've practiced so many times, probably still butchering it.
It's good. Thank you.
I really enjoyed that. It's a pleasure. I really enjoyed our chat, our creative showcase. Regardless of the fact that there were technical issues up front, I think the images, etc., were really, really cool. So I appreciate that. So I think let's start off with some of your images here, and then here we go. So that's the first one that you've chosen.
So this is am I on? I'm seeing green.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is one of my favorite images. It is from A Midsummer Night's Dream, and it is very much in terms of, I think, style defining of the character and the type of shoots that I really sort of want to do. And it was just very whimsical, very magical. I've spoken a lot about, wanting to create other worlds and wanting to create the fairy story and the book and bring the book to life. So that's very much what my work is about the story behind the story. I unfortunately can't draw like Grethe, so this is how I draw. So in my head I would love to be able to draw, but alas, I use my camera, and it's all about the magic. I just want to really just recreate the feelings that I had when I was a child, reading The Magic Garden and Enchanted Forest, and those are kind of the images that sort of stick with me. So in my sort of current state, so I think there's nothing better than going onto set and creating something magical. So Midsummer Night's Dream was very much my first image. I think that defined my style, or kind of chose the kind of shoots that I wanted to do. And then that was really the beginning, I would say, to a certain degree. And then from there, we moved on to slightly bigger, but more storytelling. My work, I think, as a creative director makes a very big difference to me as well, because I am very much concept driven. I love stories. I love big stories. I don't generally have stories that have like 8 or 10 images. I'll have a story that has like 80. So that can be quite interesting at the end of a project when it comes to selects. As I've always said, like, selects are absolutely my worst thing in the entire world. So that's what I'm all about: the magic, the story, the image that stays with you after the fact. And very much like, I want to be that girl in that photograph, far away, wherever that may be. And that is my night's dream.
the one thing that when I first saw the shot, I sort of, in my mind, I was working out the lighting scheme and how it was done, etc. And then when I saw the behind the scenes images, it's amazing that this is one light. That light that's coming from behind is the sunset, And
sunrise.
Sorry.
Yeah, we were up at 3 a.m. in the morning to prepare for the shot. I love morning light. So yeah, we were up at 3 a.m. Jade was getting ready from 3. And then I used the barn doors. Like I love the cinematic feel of them. So I was blasting her face, the front of her face with the barn doors, and then using the ambient lights. And then, as you said, I was backlighting her with the sunrise behind. So it was all done very, very, very quickly. My shoots are all done very, very quickly. I'm sort of getting out. I don't spend ages. I'm like, right, let's go.
I feel the same.
Yeah, I'm like, and it's obviously, I work really, really quickly, which is very good for advertising. Advertising love me because I'm in there and I'm like, let's shoot. So I'm very, very, very quick when it comes to being on set and sort of getting the final shot. I'm not someone who will spend like hours and hours with one image. It'll be like maybe like 20 minutes is like, that's like the bomb if we get as much as that. But I mean, generally I can have, because I know exactly what I'm looking for and exactly what I'm going for. So I get a resolution really, really quickly. I'm sort of, in terms of that. So, and you have to work quickly when you're working with ambient lights as well, because obviously your conditions are changing. And I think that one of the things that I really enjoy doing is mixing ambient and flash. I really enjoy that, whether it be bright days, early morning, sunsets, etc. Even with my beauty work, I never shoot in a pure dark studio unless I absolutely have to. Even my beauty work will have a lot of ambient light involved, so that's quite interesting. Even if you see the images like with glimmer, the whole thing is like this sort of dark skin and beautiful purple, etc. The whole room is just flooded with ambient light. So,
no, that's very cool. I mean, the thing is that when you are working with ambient lights, you certainly don't have the luxury of, hold on, I just want to try something else, etc., etc.
Yeah, and it changes all the time. It really changes all the time. So you've got to be quite quick. I chose this image here because I thought that it was quite an interesting one for me, because in terms of a controversial, was probably one of the most controversial images I've ever done, and it brought up a lot of discussions around cultural appropriation. So that was a really interesting, I just think, an interesting discussion that this set of images generated. It was incredibly viral. The whole AFI set was just incredible. It went literally everywhere in the world. It's just been the most amazing set that even to this day, I think it's 2 or 3 years later, it still finds its way into discussion. And one of the main topics of conversation was obviously the fact of, how we are moving and kind of living within various different countries and cities and towns, and how it's this kind of like this merging of culture. So I think that this was for me probably the most controversial I've ever got, just because it opened up that gateway to discussion in terms of, what is cultural appropriation, and what is it, in terms of like how we live and, blending. So we kind of thought very much in terms of like the line of blending cultures. It was more of that in terms of like how people are living, and globalization, and the fact that the world is getting so much smaller, and, how people are kind of getting inspired by each other in terms of like, where they come from and their creative backgrounds, etc. So that was probably about the most controversial I've ever been, but this image has done amazing things. And earlier this year it was on Sky News, and it was selected by the Secretary General of the UN as part of a big project that was presented to global leaders, etc. So this image has really, really stirred, I think, something within people. So yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting talking point, and it's something that people connect with. And I think connect is the right word, because I think we do sometimes connect with so many different parts of us. I know that like I'm intrinsically, African because I'm from South Africa, etc. But you go to all these different places and all these different, I always believe that every place that we visit almost like leaves a little bit on our souls. It doesn't matter if it's New York or Miami or Kenya or, I believe we take something with us. So I think and it changes you. Travel changes you, and then it turns you into a storyteller. Not my words, but I believe that. I believe that because it really does. It just opens your eyes to so much. And I know that one of the things that when I've traveled into Asia a lot has always been this incredible vibrancy of color and light and life. And it's so vibrant. It's such a vibrant, environment, just walking down the streets of Hong Kong or Singapore. And it's like, what is going on here? This is so crazy. It's just like, it's just unbelievable. So then you go to Kenya, which at the moment has had quite a lot of Asian influence as well. And it almost feels like standing in the middle of Nairobi. You almost feel like you're in the middle of, it's kind of like a weird feeling because it doesn't feel strictly African anymore. And it doesn't feel, strictly Asian. It's kind of an amalgamation of, of this globalized village. So I find that interesting. I find that it's really interesting that we can use fashion and use images such as this to open up these conversations, because I think they're necessary conversations to have, because obviously so many things have changed. I mean, the whole world is changing every single day, especially now with COVID. So that's for sure. So that's my that's my controversial image.
I love it. I'm going to ask the question now because it's relevant to the image. How much post-production was done on this image was a question from one of the guys watching.
We try very, very, very hard to limit the post-production, especially taking into account, coming from South Africa, the post-production vibe, etc., is generally very little. So I shoot for finals as much as I can, and it's probably I wouldn't have an exact percentage, but I think we delivered about 100 images that week, so post-production was very minimal. It just is. We just aren't. We don't have time. It's a difficult thing. Sometimes, like for the American market, with the beauty images, that becomes a little bit more complicated because the American beauty market is a little bit more post-production kind of intensive. But I don't really shoot a lot of beauty anymore, so I shoot more storytelling. So yeah, we shoot for finals as best as we can and clean up the images a little bit, and off we go.
Yeah, get it right in camera.
Yeah, exactly. And also I think that I shoot very vibrantly. I mean, in terms of like the lighting and etc., I mean, we use pro photos, etc. Like I really shoot for color. I'm big into color. I think I shot that with my 850, with my Nikon 850, and I mean that is just like, it's just a queen of color. It's just like it's unbelievable in terms of capturing that kind of like sort of color, which is involved with, obviously there was, we had quite a lot of lighting. I can't remember how much, but there was quite an intensive lighting setup. Whereas the difference between this image, I shot this with the Sony AR4, and I think that camera works really, really, really well under these conditions, which was 100% natural light. There was no lighting whatsoever. It was just shot at a very beautiful time of the day. I think we might have had a little bit of reflection. And the reason why this is in here, this is kind of like my interesting image, because I think I just love it. I think it's got a very storytelling kind of vibe to it and feel to it. So and I feel very much my work is kind of progressing to a lot more people, a lot more environments, a lot more kind of busyness. And I feel that like as I'm sort of been moving more into film, it's definitely taking on like quite an interesting phase of like a lot of people, a lot of different characters, and a lot of like emotional kind of vibes. So this I just, as I say, like this, I just want to be her. I want to be them. I think like this is just like Thelma and Louise vibes, but like Indiana Jane, they're going off on this amazing mad adventure, and yeah, so that's that image.
It's quite interesting that that you chose this image because of the fact that one of the images from this series also had so many different people in it. Guys smoking, camera right, this happening, camera left at the back.
Yeah, I think I had like 15 images, like 15. No, there weren't 15 people in there. There were about 10. There were like about 10 people in that. Like I've recently been filling my scenes with people. But like I love that picture of Kingsley. I think it feels intrinsically African, and it feels intrinsically, it's got that like feeling of like, I don't know, so many afternoons that I've perhaps at some point in my youth been in a car somewhere along some, dusty road when you're on an adventure, and it's like, where are you going? And, it's life is exciting. And so, yeah, that's how it feels to me. It feels like it's, you're about to embark on an incredible adventure. And there's a lot of excitement in the air, and this is cool.
Absolutely. I dig it.
I don't know if I'm right, but that's how.
Well, you know what? Go with it. I think it feels right. It certainly, makes me want to get in a car and drive somewhere.
I know exactly, right?
Yeah. Very cool. All right, Melanie, it's your images are up next. So let's share the screen here. All right, there we go. I really enjoyed this one. I keep threatening to do multiple exposure projects, but everything gets in the way. So one day, but this is really cool.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mel. So I am a commercial photographer as well. I concentrate on food and product. So I shot, as with any photography, you shoot everything in the beginning. But I lost quite a bit of my art along the way, where I was concentrating so much about the technicability of work that I wasn't shooting at all for fun anymore. So I have been shooting since I was 14, come from film. And then I decided to try and find a happy medium between the two. And by going into food and into product, I could do flat lays and I could do styling and all this type of stuff. I sort of found a happy medium between the two. So when I'm not in the studio or shooting for clients, I play. So I like to push the limits. So coming from an art background, I like to do things that are completely different and make the viewer think. So often when we go out shooting, people often make comments about the light, like it's too harsh or it's too dark, or you can't isolate your subject and this type of stuff. And I follow 8 methods, of which each one of them have their own methods within them, to try and create art images of scenes and places that I've been. And by doing so, you are constantly thinking about how you're going to shoot, or shoot something a million people have shot before, but doing your own take on it. And also, you will always remember exactly where you were at the stage, because you throw all your energy and your thought pattern and your creativity behind shooting that one scene, that you might have lots of crazy pictures on your computer, but you will know exactly where each one of them was shot. So this specific image, Quentin has actually sold probably about 15 copies.
Wow, nice.
It's also been featured in a couple of magazines. This one I decided to actually leave out for my latest publication. So I've just been published in an international in-camera movement magazine, which is my first paid publication. And the thing is, in the beginning, when I was shooting all these weird and wonderful things, I was actually rejected quite a lot in the photographic community, because people could not understand, why would you want to shoot a blurry image, or why would you want to even do that to your image when we're here to shoot perfect shots? But for me, it goes beyond that. I think because we have to shoot so rigid and perfectly all the time, that when you're out in the field, it's nice to find a way to express yourself. So a lot of my students and people that I have coached along the way all have a story. People have lost family members, people, especially now in the times that we're finding it. And I found it was a very good way for them to revisit scenes that they maybe had with loved ones, or this type of thing, and throw all that emotion into the image that they're shooting. And by doing so, they could create an artwork which they could hang at home on the wall, which they have actually expressed and got rid of a lot of the emotion. This specific image was actually on a group outing with a bunch of photographers in company gardens. And at the time, it was really overcast and quite dark, and people were like just running to go to the restaurant rather to go and sit and have something to eat instead of shooting because of the lighting conditions. And this water lily actually caught my attention, but it was really busy, as you can imagine, this pond full of leaves and lilies, and the light had actually just perfectly fallen on this water lily. And I did a multiple exposure of 3 here, and the background didn't matter as much because I had used the background and the leaves to create a piece of art instead of worrying if this was just the lily on its own, you would have had a bit of dirty water and all this type of stuff. So yeah, I just took the moment of the bad weather, a slight bit of light, and just, you know, as I said, a busy background, and created a piece of art out of it. And this has always been my favorite. I think a lot of people, if they think about my work, always think about this image. So this is why I included this specific one.
Yeah, I must say, I really enjoy the multi-exposure images. When we did a creative showcase with Martin Osner, you know, he had a couple in, and I just find them so fantastic. You know, it's this obviously you know, we try and tell stories in our photography, be it for clients or for ourselves. But you know, when they've got those multiple layers in them, literally, for me, it just it almost comes alive, which is really, really awesome. I enjoyed that.
And the nice thing about that as well is, you know, you can spend hours in post-processing doing exactly the same thing. But, you know, when I get that excitement from my clients, when they get it, or my students, as I hate calling them students because they're adults and a lot of them are way older than I am. But when you see the look on people's faces when they get that right, you know, so I'm not exactly sure about Nikon, but I know Canon has got 4 different methods, so it's good to play with those. And you can do up to 9 shots, which are really great. So you can really go crazy. I've done a couple of people. That's also, you know, interesting. But the thing is, playing with the light and the dark, and then doing these layers, as you say, you can really tell a story. So I remember once we were walking around company gardens, and I actually came out, and there was a statue of one of our presidents or ministers or something, and this guy actually looked a bit like God. And I actually took this image and then walked to one of the big churches, and I actually shot him on top of the church. And that sort of gave a completely different sort of storytelling. So you can really do storytelling with a scene that you are in, bringing different elements together and making one image. So that, yeah, it is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is 2 sailing boats. So not all my images are recognizable, whereas there's a subject that you can actually see. In this thing, you can make out that it is boats. So this was actually shot on the Neisner Lagoon. Again, it was absolutely pouring with rain. It was actually terrible weather. I was there for work, and I was actually going out on the water for one of my clients to featherbed. And I had the camera with me, and I just decided, you know what, the light is actually perfect at the moment, you know, to drop your shutter speed and really, really go mad. So, you know, I flagged this image, and I actually think I made it like a painting, and I was really pleased with the result. And once again, it just proves that it doesn't matter what the conditions are outside, you can produce something really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the age-old adage of you know, picture telling 1,000 words, and the cool thing with this type of thing is that it's everyone who looks at it is going to be you know, there's going to be a different 1,000 words, you know, because everyone's taking out whatever they you know, whatever they're reading into it.
A lot of my fine art stuff is completely abstract. So the magazine actually went onto my website and chose images that they found. It was a whole series I actually did in another artist studio whose art I actually shoot for a living. So she let me come play with the colors in the studio because she's got a messy floor and brushes, and one of them actually looks a bit like the Northern Lights, and it was actually quite an image. You know, people chatted to me a lot about it, and my opinion, or you know, when they started chatting about it, was saying, you know, anybody that has studied art would know that you find your voice, and then you will paint something that people might not necessarily like, but they will stop and look at it. So as you know, we've got thousands of images that go past on social media every single day. So if you go and post an abstract or something completely different that makes that person even just stop for a second and think, what the heck is that? Or wow, or you've got engagement from your audience. And I think with shooting these creative methods, you actually, you can convey a message. And as you just said, every single person will take their own message or see their own scene or whatever within that image. So that's the great thing about art in general.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I mean, I think if you can stop someone for even if it is just a second these days, you've achieved quite a huge task, because there's just so many images and so many amazing images. It really doesn't matter where you're looking on Instagram. You just next, and they're all fantastic. So if you can stop someone, even if it is for a couple of seconds, that's really, really cool. All right, Tarryn.
As well,
yeah?
just one last thing. I think your images that actually make you the most uncomfortable to post are actually the ones that get the most attraction. So I think as artists, you do get judged by others and all this type of stuff, and then you find that one image and you're really actually uncomfortable to put out, and it's like, oh my word, what are people going to think? But I do find that those are the images that normally get the most traction. And yeah, those are the ones that actually post or give you a stamp, that people actually remember.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that if you do shoot more, like fine art and artistic interpretations as opposed to commercial things, then that definitely is something that comes into it. I as I said earlier, I mean, I keep wanting to shoot more artistic images, but for whatever reason things get in the way, and possibly that's my stumbling block. I need to get over that, start posting things, because I'm scared of what people will say about it. And yeah, I mean, as soon as you start doing that, you start finding that other part of as you say, your voice, and posting things that sometimes are uncomfortable, but definitely in a direction that if you're happy with it, I think can give you a lot of satisfaction. What was that, Melanie?
Want me to talk about the last image?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think Tarryn, you've been waiting patiently. Thank you very much. All right, let's get on to some of your images. And again, we had a creative showcase with you this month. So thanks very much for that. Let's check out what you've got. I mean, I think that one of the things that I found with the more sort of fashion oriented showcases was, because I don't shoot fashion, I sometimes look at it and go, and it's just because if you don't shoot it, you don't necessarily understand the nuances of it, etc. And I think that it's really cool to be able to speak to people where you've got such a vast sort of range of disciplines that come together, because it's at the end of the day, the more things that you see, the more things you experience, and the more things that you try, it just gives you more tools for being able to work on projects and improve your craft.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just speak to that before I sort of jump in. But for me, one of the things that I always use as a constant source of creative inspiration is looking to things totally outside of photography. I'm sure all of us can relate to this. I think when you're faced with that Instagram screen every day and you see so much of the same, and everybody's copying or referencing everything else, you just see so many images that are cousins of other images. So to look at things like music or poetry or film or art, for me, for paintings as well, to draw inspiration from all other mediums that inspire you in any way is also super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with that 100%. You know, sometimes I feel like I'd get into a bit of a rut, you know, sitting behind your computer for more time than you should be. And my body and my mind is almost trying to tell me, go somewhere cool. You know, and by that I mean like somewhere that's got like, it's a different setting, it's a different headspace, because now all of a sudden you know, you're not at your desk, you're not, you know, you doing things that you normally do. This is something different, and just by doing that will give you a fantastic perspective change.
Yeah, just wake up your brain a little. Well, I need to. You know, it's just giving it a little bit of a refresh, and whether that's looking at a style of photography that's a little bit alien to your natural way, or looking at a totally different medium. If you're stuck, then the only way to unstuck yourself really is to look at something totally new and to really shake things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So I'll launch into it now. So I am predominantly a portraiture photographer. I'd say like a fashion-infused portraiture photographer. And I come from a background of painting and of studying acting and film. So I think that there's a pretty obvious through line in my work of something that's quite cinematic, or at least that's what I aim for. Yeah, and I love this image. Again, I'm one of the most violently self-critical humans about my own work, but I can honestly say I have a lot of love for this image. There's, funnily enough, the model in this image is the model that is from the AFI image by Ingrid as well. So this is a model called Inky, who is absolutely amazing. And this was a little shoot that we did. I think I explained this to Quentin in our showcase, but it was literally Inky and I. So it was as basic a crew as you can possibly hope for. And we just walked through a couple of roads and we came upon this really beautiful alien looking plant. And then I was quite interested in, I've always been interested in going against conventional norms of the expression of gender for men and for women. And this, I thought, was an interesting moment to show a woman in a way that maybe they're not normally represented in photography. And also for me, I've always been very drawn to the in-between moments. So less so the very big fashion poses, the very fashion moments. It's more of an in-between, like a what's happened just before and what's going to happen just after. Those sort of moments I find very interesting. And I think I managed to get Inky in one of those moments in this portrait.
Yeah, I think the color also works so well together, the treatment for that.
Thank you. Yeah. I think the thing that I always try and sell first, more than anything else, is a feeling. So it's a mood. As soon as somebody looks at one of my images, I really hope that they immediately have a gut reaction, whether it's terrible or it's good, or you feel really sad and you don't understand why, or there's something that's slightly off, or whatever it is. If you feel something, then for me, I've done my job.
Absolutely. And that, I suppose that goes again to, you know, stopping someone, you know, for a couple of seconds, just to look a little bit longer and you know, question.
Exactly. So we spoke about this in the showcase as well, but again, it's that never-ending stream of content and that feels quite disposable. It feels like we just put out content for people to absorb for 0.2 seconds, and then they drive on with their day, and it all gets, you know, it's swallowed by this black hole of never-ending visuals that we're all faced with. But if you can make an image that makes somebody sit with it just for a little bit longer, again, that's so important to me. And even if I don't achieve it with every single photo, it's certainly something that I really aim for.
I think it's a really cool aim. I have to say, I think that one of the things that that these creative showcases have taught me, and I mean, there's tons. I want to say I could write a book, but no one would read it because it's not online, and it's got too many words. But there's just so much, and I think that I'm really hoping that people will go and watch some of those showcases, because the amount of info, the just these little gems that that have come from the people that I've chatted to, it's really is so important, and it's really got me questioning the things that I do and the way that I do things, and why I'm not doing things that I've traditionally just not wanted to do for whatever reason. So I mean, I think it's great that that these are challenging me, and I think that if it's making me uncomfortable, and that's good, because that's the part where you start either getting more creative or changing things that have been in a rut for too long. So I mean, I certainly appreciate that, so thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's always important to question yourself, like, why do I do it this way? Why do I think this way? Why is the tradition this? Why are women normally represented like this in photography? Or why are men normally represented like this in photography? And sort of getting to the underlying root of why people do things that they do. I've always tried to dig away at those questions in my visuals.
Very cool.
Cool. So this one is from an editorial that I shot, I think 3 years ago now. And again, this is looking at the representation of women in photography. So when I started in photography, I would see a lot of representation of women where they were, how do I say this? It would be quite a sexual image of women, or a sexy image of women. But it didn't really feel like the women were driving the photo. It didn't feel like they were in control. And that was always something that really sat very badly with me. So whenever I do shoot women in a way that is sort of more sexy, or there's more skin showing, I really like them to be in the driver's seat. I really like them to challenge the viewer. So both of these women, who are amazing models, this is Saskia and Emmy, both from Boss Models, and both of them are really holding the viewer's gaze and challenging them. And it's very like, it's a moment of owning your body and owning your sexuality and owning the skin that you're showing. And almost challenging the viewer to look at them, which is something that I also really like.
Yeah, I as a male photographer, obviously, I actually feel uncomfortable when I see images that are exploitative, if you want to call it like that. So lots of skin, the cliched poses, etc. And I have to say, I just don't enjoy them, because I don't see the point, because I don't understand why, the why of it. And I think that it's important that, these sort of things are ventilated, because, it's just objectifying, the woman in the image. The comments all great shot, blah, 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 etc. And it's like, well, it's not a great shot. It's in a lot of cases it's quite meh, but just because there's a bikini and whatever, whoa, great shot, that I've never understood. And I don't really know what to do about it or say about it, but I don't think that it's I'm not sure that it has much merit in in today's culture, lifestyle, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there are a lot of photographers who shoot like that and who can make a lot of money from those sorts of images. But for me, I feel like there's a little bit of a responsibility as a woman behind the lens, to make sure that the women in front of the lens feel well represented, taken care of, And they're not going to look back on a shoot and go, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I did that, and I can't believe that that's me, and I feel a little funny. And I like the women who have shot with me afterwards to look back on images and go, yes, that's me, and I feel strong. And yeah.
Love it. Very cool.
Cool. So again, in a similar breath, this is a model, Riley. And here I worked with a stylist, Kai Boshoff, who I've worked with many times before, and a makeup artist, Nikki Allen. And the other thing I would say to photographers who are starting out is it's very important to align yourself with a team who share similar visions or maybe similar visual ideals. And finding that team and working with that team as much as you can as well, which I've been very lucky to do. And in this image, we wanted to work, to start a conversation around the representation of how men are generally photographed as well in portraits. So typically it's about being tough and strong and masculinity on masculinity. But with Riley, who's the most amazing model, we wanted to explore something that was a lot softer, something that has a little bit of drama to it as well. And we came out with this image, which I also really love.
Yeah, I can imagine that an image like this, and that's probably the difference between, shooting men and shooting women. I would imagine that an image like this would be quite polarizing, because, people look at this, they kind of go, whoa, what's going on there, whereas a woman without her top on, oh, great shot. You know what I mean? So I love the way that it challenges, the conceptions, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very valid point. But again, for me, I think I'd rather be making art that people do have a feeling towards. So it's not just something that disappears into the nothingness. If you hate it, maybe you should sit with yourself and go, "Ooh, why does this make me uncomfortable?" Yeah. Which I also think is a very valuable question for one to face themselves with. And then the other thing that I really love about this photo is the way that the light is reflecting on the skin, which feels very Renaissance painting-esque to me.
Mm-hmm.
But then using something like that in such a modern way, in such a modern representation of a human, I think that as well, that juxtaposition of something that's almost quite classic with something that is a little bit of a twist, a modern twist on things, is also really cool to me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful image. I really enjoy it, I have to say. All right, so I think we've covered everyone. Hey, everyone's gone through their images. What I'd like to do is, and let's just quickly go through the questions that have come up. Spoken about the linking a narrative to an image. Emmy wanted to know, how do you shoot harsh light without being overexposed? I'm assuming, Ingrid, that might be directed in your, or in fact, no, Grethe. Yeah, maybe it's.
I think it's me.
You want to jump in on that? In fact, anyone who wants to jump in on that. But Grethe, I think if you want to start.
So harsh light, harsh direct sunlight, especially, is my absolute favorite light source. It's something that I've been working with since the beginning of photography. And a lot of people also ask me, it's kind of a departure, but it's relevant. People ask me, how do you find your style? And something I always say is that your style is there from the very beginning. If I look at my work from when I started photography to what I'm doing now, it's always harsh light, deep contrast, bright colors, powerful poses, always those four things. And it's been like that since the beginning. And the thing with harsh light that I love doing is, just trying to make the shadows work with it as well, because I feel that shadow, as you know, within design and with art where you have negative space, you have that within photography in the form of shadows as well. And I feel that is extremely important. So I think just the easiest, most concise way to explain how to work with harsh light is just be mindful of the shadows and see how to make them work, instead of just, you know, be bombarded with them and feeling out of control, and just make them work for you. And then of course, just expose for your highlights. If you expose for your highlights, and then you can see your shadows, and then you can just make them work.
Yeah,
I have a lighting tip. I don't know if that's anything.
Yeah.
I often find myself, especially I shoot a lot of commercial work like advertising, and sometimes I have found myself shooting something which we call a key visual, which is like we generally have like a set of key visuals which are main campaign images, like deliverables that we have to kind of deliver, which can be quite stressful. At like 12 o'clock in the middle of the day on a beach on the West Coast or something. So what happens sometimes with the stills is we generally get the worst time of the day, where the film get like the wonderful golden light. Then it's like, don't worry, you know, we'll just throw the stills in, so, you know, during the time when the light is really, really, really harsh. So I've found myself working in harsh light quite often, especially in Cape Town. So if you don't have any other lights, I generally obviously will always have the model towards the sun, etc.
Yeah.
But I do, as I said, I am very much a kind of ambient light shooter with harsh light. So a couple of tips for that is the Profoto beauty light. So beauty dish is like absolutely amazing, even with like a small little a small, even just with a smaller light on a 500, etc. works absolutely beautifully. If you can pump it up to something that's around 500, amazing. And then something which I discovered recently on a shoot, which is I basically used I rented a broncular softbox, which I used with my Profoto light, and literally at 12 o'clock in the middle of the sun, it was one of, I think it was in January, it was, oh my gosh, or February, it was like one of the hottest days of my life. I think I don't even know what I looked like at the end of it. I was literally like crawling around in the sand from like 12 o'clock to 3. It was the craziest day. I couldn't see a thing. We have something called a digi. The digi was back there, like far away. We were like, I don't know, the images were going to Holland, to Germany, to the moon. I don't know. I couldn't see what was going on. It was just like, there was sun, there was sand, there was cream. It was just like, But, and then my very, very, very amazing assistant, who was literally holding this one light onto the skin, and in the middle of the day. And I must say, it's for me one of the most amazing harsh light environments that I've shot in terms of just like the whole shoot was for skin. So I mean, I can be the one light wonder, like 100%. Like I love one light. I'm like, I can shoot anything with one light.
Same.
It's like, I remember shooting like Miss South Africa. I had like one light, and there was some advertising people there, and they had like R1 million worth of broncular setups, and here is me with my like little one, like and I'm like, Kenya, down the canyons of Kenya, like one light, open rivers with five people, one light. It's like one light wonder. But yeah, so that's what I find. It works really well. And the other thing is like, don't even be like scared to like not use a modifier. If the light is that bright, you can literally just like, I'm not scared to like shoot proper bare bulb. Like I'm like, let's do it. It's like, it's like, I know that I know it's probably not the done thing or whatever, but yeah, so I just, I find for that, if you can get either the beauty dish, amazing. I stay away from soft boxes on those kind of days because it's not strong enough. It's not harsh enough. I love hard light. So it's either going to be barn doors, the beauty dish with grids for dark skins. Just makes it absolutely glow. It's so beautiful. And then, as I say, like if you're looking for something with the whole body, that's you're looking for a little bit of power, I can, if we sort of rent a broncular, kind of the smaller parabolic, and throw it on there, except it does kind of blow the pro photos up a little bit, so you have to have a bit of a sense of humor when you use it, and be able to like take everything down and just let it cool down and stuff like that. I don't know if it's really meant to work together, but anyway.
And sorry, Ingrid. Oh, and two other things I've also noticed when it comes to shooting with harsh light is in South Africa, especially, our sunlight is a lot more yellow, which is something in terms of white balance that I found you need to kind of wangle your way around. And also, and I think a friend of mine may have said this to me, and it's made a lot of sense. In most times of the year, the sun is never completely right above you. It's always angled in some direction. So you can actually, make it work with the model. You just have to double check where your shadows fall and where your light is coming from. That is the most important thing probably with harsh light as well. And as Ingrid said, like shooting bare bulb, because something that's super, super important with harsh light is that your light needs to match. So if you're going to work with soft boxes and, the harsh sunlight, it's not always going to translate properly. Of course, you can make it work for you in certain ways if you're using with a backlight or a rim light like using the sun as a backlight or a rim light. But for me personally, if I'm shooting harsh light outside and I need full flash, I just bare bulb it all the way. Don't be afraid. Just do it.
So well.
Go for
exactly. Like Nike.
Exactly. Balls to the wall, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. And like experiment. Like don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Just like do it. Like do that and bring in the reflector. You know what I'm saying? Like just like.
So there's one thing that I've learned when you're on your own, you don't have an assistant or anything like that with you. If you take that octa and you put it between the model and the sun, and you actually use that to light it, you're cutting out those harsh shadows and you're lighting your subject. So that's another sort of, I suppose, guerrilla option to look at it. So you've got to use whatever technique you can find to make it work.
Exactly. It's like, although I have learned that like trying to hold a reflector on Noordhoek Beach in the wind is a terrible idea.
Yes.
While trying to shoot, I've had some,
Ingrid, I appreciate you though. Like I'm just a lot of people think I'm a lot less low tech than I am, but I'm also one light girly, man. Like one light girl in the sun, straight up.
There we go. That makes two lights.
You can go so far.
It's so fascinating listening to all of these photographers talk about lighting and how some people kind of are really techie and some people aren't. And I think it just goes to show that anything goes really with photography.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like Grethe, you said, I think the fundamentals of it, you've got to understand light. And that comes from experience. And you've got to, because I generally shoot natural light, or if I'm in studio, I'm one light and I shoot. I know Ingrid's like, I don't like them. I generally shoot with a softbox because with dogs, I can't have a really precise light because they move around. So I need to be able to, I can't have them on X marks the spot because they don't stay there. And it's one thing I learned with my career, especially if you're shooting on location, you have to be able to go somewhere and like scout around and be like, where is good light here, even if it's 12 o'clock in the middle of the day. And that comes from experience. I mean, absolutely, of kind of, like I said, taking a bit of time to check what's going on, take a test shot, and don't be afraid to move yourself or your stuff around. Nobody objects on a shoot, I don't think, if you kind of scout around a little bit to find a spot while you're working.
I think that's something that, that I learned, something you just mentioned that I learned from when I did time as a wedding photographer. It makes you resilient. Like you need to show up and shoot and make these split-second decisions, which is also extremely important with lighting. It is extremely important with, just any general situation when you're shooting, and being resilient. And that's what I love about the genre that I'm in, is because it's so fast-paced. But I'm forever grateful for, weddings teaching me, how to just go like this.
I don't want to do anymore.
That I do not want to do anymore. There's some exceptions, definitely an exception here and there, but they are few and far in between.
I love how you said there how you did time. As
I
a
totally did. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally high fives to that one. Yeah.
I mean, I think
Totally did.
it's one of those genres that once you come through it the other end and you've been relatively successful, you could pretty much shoot anything at any time. You know, at the drop of a hat, someone gives you a camera and here's a whatever. Okay, cool. Let's here we go. Done. Next. You know, because it's, you know, you got to shoot portraits, you got to deal with people, it's landscapes, it's product, you know, and it's all, you know, things change all the time.
It's
so
photography boot camp.
Oh, absolutely.
Photography boot camp.
It's photography boot camp. That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
I think I would be like the crying wedding photographer. Like, oh my gosh.
Oh no, not me.
Oh no.
No, not me. That's how I realized weddings weren't for me, because I was just standing there rolling my eyes the whole time.
I would be like the 27 dresses wedding photographer.
Honestly, though, I want to say this. I have the world's respect for wedding photographers. When I got married earlier this year, like just seeing our photographer, like just doing things like this, I was like, this is not for me, but you guys doing weddings, everyone listening, wedding photographers, you guys, I have the world's respect for you, because I bowed out for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
Just thinking about what you're saying now with rolling your eyes, I had one of my assistants at when I was shooting weddings, his eyes would roll all the time. And I mean, I tried to explain to him on several occasions that you can't just go, oh, for goodness sake, you know, because it's just not done. No. But you know, his eyes would roll and he would go, oh, for God's sake, okay, you know, and you've got to try and, you know, it's not the done thing. Okay, so we've kind of, I know we started, exactly, just deal with it. I know we started a little bit later, but I just want to get onto a couple of questions that we can just provide a little bit of I suppose, advice, hints, tips, whatever. The first one being, and I think, you know, we can all jump in on this one, advice for someone who's starting out. So you've decided that you know, your phone is taught you this photography that you love and you're going to make it your job. What's the first bit of advice that you would give to someone, possibly before they decide to, you know, spend money at a college and buy a camera? What is the first bit of advice?
I think my advice, and I wish I'd followed it, is kind of, I think, research what you're interested in and kind of don't be afraid to go down that road. Like Tarryn said, you know, I tend to not look at other photographers for influence, especially not other pet photographers, because, you know, like what Tarryn said resonated, that everyone's images are cousins of everybody else's. And you look at, especially the world of pet photography, everyone's using these same presets, these composite backdrops, and actually nobody's work stands out. So it's to kind of, I think, experiment and go out and shoot, because that is the only way you learn. I'll have, I occasionally do photography lessons with people, and I'll say to them, you need to go away in between and shoot, so we have something to look at. Otherwise, I can tell you all the technical stuff, but if you don't go and practice it, lots of shooting, possibly of price.
Yeah, and also for me, it's like 3 things. Don't be scared, do what you want, and don't shoot for social media. Because if you're going to shoot for likes on Facebook and Instagram, you're going to have a bad time.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You're going to be the crying wedding photographer.
Indeed.
Exactly. Like me at least, I will be the crying wedding photographer because I'm not having a fun time.
For me, I definitely think, like, I'm quite, as everyone knows, I'm quite business orientated as well. So for me, it would be very much like, write down your dream 3 clients. Who would you like to one day shoot for? I think that will really help you in terms of your style. You know, If it's, for example, like, you know, Dolce & Gabbana and Versace and Chanel, obviously that's a little bit different to, you know, amazing portraiture, etc. So I think that that's something for me that you need to get quite clear on if you want to be commercially viable. I'm all about being commercial as well as, you know, doing amazing work or whatever, because, well, you know, the dogs are the dogs need dog food, and, you know, the house needs to be paid for, and, you know, like all of those annoying like little life things, which I think that that can be a little bit stressful within any creative craft, not just photography, literally any creative craft. You need to get, you know, smart on the business side of things, as well as, I think, on the creative side. And I think that if you know your 3 clients and you know kind of a little bit of, like, because, I mean, let's be honest, we're all just dreaming about what we want to do, you know. So right now I'm dreaming in the dark because my life. I just need to back on that.
Okay, so what do we do?
That is my words of wisdom: is know your 3 clients, and then, like, life is easy.
Okay, so Ingrid, ISO 25,000, f 1.8. Let's see if we can make the shot work.
Sorry, I'm back.
That's all right.
I must agree with Ingrid on the business side of things, because I also teach the business of photography. So I would, you know, the one thing is people always say, oh, I'm doing this shoot for free and I'm doing that shoot for free. And my advice is always to people, I know you don't have your confidence in the beginning, and I know you probably think you're doing a shitty job or whatever, but if you're going to shoot the neighbor next door's dog and cat as a practice or whatever, at least cover your time by offering a small amount, even to start off with, that you have respect from the beginning, because those people are usually the ones that will come back to you and ask for a freebie of some sort later on. So it's not, people always ask me, but how do you know what your worth is? That you will determine yourself as you go along, but at least get respect from the start. Even if you're just covering fuel or whatever the case may be. If there's a money exchange, it's more an energy exchange than anything else. To make you both on the same level, that they respect you as an artist and you respect yourself to at least ask money from the start. And then the other thing I would say is gear FOMO. So if I look back when I started, I won't mention names. I went into a store and I actually got sold, I almost said a swear word, a bunch of things that I never ended up using, that I actually sold afterwards. This is why I'm very, you know, sort of strict with my students and people in my group, and that is always come to me first for advice. Because it doesn't help you're going out and you're buying this and this and this, but it's not something you're ever going to be interested in, and it's going to lie and gather dust. Rather sort of get an idea of what you're looking at doing and build up your gear, then all of a sudden rushing out and buying this and this, and it's all new and it's all wonderful or whatever, and it ends up lying in the cupboard, or you give it away, or whatever the case may be. So that would be the second thing, is get sound advice from somebody that knows their gear and that knows their gear, and that knows a little bit, you know, more about a lot of genres, so that they can give you sound advice. And the third thing I would say is definitely a confidant, because this industry, unfortunately, is very backstabbing, or can be, and people can get really nasty, and you know, things can get out of hand if you see social media and how people, you know, lay into newbies when they ask what people call stupid questions, but they actually really don't know. It's not that they are trying to be funny, they are really ignorant, and not in a negative sense. So to find a confident buddy, somebody that you can really ask the stupid questions to, that make you think might be stupid, that will actually just give you a proper answer without, you know, being funny, I think is the 3 things I would suggest to somebody starting out.
I think if I can also just add to that, another great way to learn in a safe way, in a way that you feel like there's less pressure. There's 2 ways, or at least I did. You have some very generous friends who you can make all the very embarrassing mistakes in front of, and it doesn't cost you anything. Practice with those generous people as much as you can, and experiment. Don't do the same thing over and over. If you've got it, try and learn something new. And then the other way is obviously to assist. It gives you a good idea of what is in store for you in a very real way on the job. And also it does allow you to be mentored so that you can ask the silly questions and see how things work in a professional context, which is definitely something that has to be learned. You don't just know that when you get to set. There's an etiquette and a way that things work that has to be taught.
Yeah,
absolutely.
To jump off from what Tarryn said, what you just said, though, a third way as well, but I do understand that this is something that's not accessible to everyone. It is if you have the opportunity to do this, you're incredibly privileged. But a lot of debate exists within our industry and our community about formal education within not just photography, but within art in general, any creative medium. But I myself, I'm very fortunate. I hold a degree in graphic design and photography. And something that I have learned during this degree is, number one, it is a safe space for you to make mistakes. You get a bad mark if you do a bad job on a project. You don't get a client wanting to fire you. So that is really, really helpful, is learning how to be a photographer and learning how to be an artist within an environment that's conducive to you learning how to do this without having to learn how to navigate an industry at the same time. And also some of the things which are my biggest takeaways from having studied are things like visual literacy and critical thinking and work ethic, and on that kind of level, and also just self-awareness and social awareness. Because as artists, we've spoken a lot about storytelling this evening, but as artists, we need to be keenly aware of our responsibility as artists and what stories we're telling and whose stories we're telling, and, how to execute them in a way that is, not only respectful and, digestible, but also, how am I trying to say this? The gist of it is basically you need to be able to have self-awareness and be aware of the stories that you're telling. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a conceptual story or something that is hard-hitting and, a socially relevant story. Even just myself as a fashion photographer, how do I represent bodies, not only through, the garments that I shoot, the people that I shoot, but also, how do I retouch? Because I'm also a retoucher, and I've been doing retouching since I started photography. It's something I've been interested in from the beginning. But how do I retouch in a way, simply put, that doesn't make people feel bad about themselves? Because that is something, growing up with the fashion industry that we grew up with in the 90s is vastly different to the one that we are seeing today, which is an incredible improvement. It's not in a bad way, because, we are seeing a lot more in terms of, body acceptance, body positivity, all across races. And, very, very important is you need to respect the topic that you're working with. You need to respect the story. You need to respect the people in the story. That is extremely important.
Yeah, very cool. I think that responsibility is a big part of it. So I think what I'd like to do, Grethe, Sabina has got heart, eye, faces, and a big red heart. Love your work. And what I'd like to do is I want to wrap up maybe with a question from Conrad. Again, just jump in as you want to. What is something about the South African photographic industry that you'd like to see changed or improved? I think, if we can, just give a bit of feedback on that, and we can wrap it up with that.
For me personally, I would, sorry.
No, go, Greta, go.
Okay, cool. I would personally, number one, like to see more women represented, especially women of color, trans women, non-binary people within our industry. I would very much like to see more equal representation, of the incredible talent that we have outside of the current narrative that we are seeing within photography, in terms of, big brand ambassadorships, just in the community, in panels like these, across the internet, across the world. I would like to see a lot more of that.
I think I'll jump in with the pricing side of it, is stop seeing photographers undercharging, because it sets a really bad precedent for clients and there's such a sliding scale of rates that are paid here. It's terrifying, really. And especially if you look at people use that South African Freelancers Association as a guide to rates. I mean, I think those rates are catastrophically low.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I ask because, I do a little bit of, commercial work in the pet industry space. And I had to quote, a couple of years ago on something, and I had one of my clients was an art director at an agency, and I said to her, listen here, what is the going day rate for photographers? Because I've got a quote for this job and I've got no idea. So she came back to me and she said, well, it's anywhere between 5 and 15,000 rand, and per image rate is anywhere between 200 and 20,000 rand. And don't forget, you need to add your editing, your gear and everything else on there. And there's such a huge range of prices there. I think there almost needs to be a industry minimum for, because it's just when you're on the, I'm on the higher end of the scale, we're charging for things. Is you sometimes have people like, wow, didn't realize having my dog photographed was so expensive. And you think, well, please go to the 350 rand photographer, jog on, have fun. But it's a problem when you've got such a huge disparity with rates, I think.
I just want to jump in there quickly with the rates. I remember early on, in the start of the Hunters of Light, we had a brief discussion about rates and what photographers should be charging, etc. And I think that's something that possibly we need to revisit with a panel like this as well, because I think for the most part, and if you're commercial photographer shooting for agencies and that type of thing, it's a little bit different. But for the most part, photographers out there are not charging what they should do. The video guys have got it sorted. Director, cameraman, right, how many cameras? 1, 2, 3 cameras. These are the lenses. These are the lights. This is this. There we go. 20 grand or whatever it is. The stills guys will go, okay, so it's me. I need to charge for fuel. Processing. Yeah, okay, cool. That's it. That's my quote. And I think that for the vast majority of people, they're really not running it like a business. It's playtime, And I think that if there was the standard, as you suggested, where it needs to be a minimum, this. I think that's where it needs to get to. Whether it'll get there or not, there's that debate of young guys coming in and charging next to nothing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think that for it to become a viable industry for people, where when at times like COVID come in and you don't have the resources financially because you've just been charging nothing for your work, it's a problem. I think that's definitely something we need to relook at.
Yeah,
and someone at some point in general advertising creative industry decided to put photographers at the bottom of the food chain, and that needs to stop. Most of the film wouldn't exist without photography. I'm just saying. So honestly, us as photographers, we just need to understand our worth. And as Mel said earlier, you need to start charging from day one, and just, make your clients respect you by respecting yourself.
Absolutely.
And I also find, and you would probably find this if a company comes to you with 300 products that they want photographed, and you're sitting around the table talking, and the big amount sounds massive to them. And I've done this, I'm guilty of it as well. And they say, well, can't we slightly negotiate because it is a lot of products? And you go and you take that step backwards, you get smacked on your bum, because they either expecting you to do more than you quoted for, or you running with the wrong type of client, because if they really respected you, they probably would have not even negotiated. They would have said fine, maybe ask you why you charge as much as you do, because a lot of it is ignorance. And I often use the example of one great image of this food or this product is going to sell 20 of those, or 30 or 50 or whatever of that same thing. And when this happens, you have a really bad experience, and you go back in yourself and and you learn out of all of this. So the only thing I can say is us as humans have a tendency of taking that one bad experience out of the whole year that went perfectly well, and we'll hammer on that one bad one and smack ourselves over the head and the whole world falls apart. But to avoid that type of stuff is to if you are giving a discount, you do it out of your gut, not because you are being asked by the client, whatever, because you know how much work that entails, all that deep etching, all that whatever. As I said, I'm guilty. And as a result, I have upped my contracts a little bit better, and, you know, my communication and so on and so on. And I really look at each job individually, but these things are there to teach us. So if it does happen, don't feel like it's the end of the world. That's life's way of teaching you, listen, don't do that again, and this is why it's happened. So yeah,
I think the other thing is if a client comes back and says, oh, you know, can you reduce the rate, is you say to them, what would you like me to take out? Can I take some, can I do some, no, but it's true, that's what they, how can I, that's fine, this is my rate, how could we, what, you know, what would you like, less pictures, less time? That's the other option. Then you can, because sometimes people are under budget constraints. It's not clients necessarily being difficult. It's we've got a budget, we need to fit in it. And it's, you know, about sort of working with them to fit in it, but not at your cost.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the strangest thing. As soon as you do that, all of a sudden, you know, they take a step back and go, well, hold on a second. But it's exactly that. Okay, well, that's fine. Then, you know, we just won't, you know, do that extra day, or right, well, we don't shoot products then, or et cetera, et cetera. And I think that negotiation is what needs to happen. You know, it can't be one-sided where this is what we expect, you know, and I think that's very, very important.
I think from my perspective, obviously 100%, so much has been covered already. We need more women advertising photographers, like 100%, like that for me. You know, as we already discussed, I mean, as Grethe said, people of color, we've discussed the business side of things, but you know, for me, I'm very, very business orientated in terms of just my life. But I think one of the things that stressed me out quite a lot is just generally like stop copying, like don't copy. Yes. Like figure out create, you know, figure out. Yeah. That is like it's like, I love the way Tarryn described it about cousins. I think that's probably one of the most beautifully worded sentences that I've ever heard, because it's exactly like that. It's like a cousin, or it's like this, or it's that, or I loved how she eloquently put that. And it's like, for me, that is just it is the most stressful thing in the entire world. Like sometimes I'll go on my Instagram or whatever, and you'll see people sharing things, and you'll be like, you know, we want to try something like this, whatever. And I get it. I understand from an inspiration perspective. And then sometimes you look at an image and you're like, I know the source of that. I know where that's coming from. And I think that it's so important to look at the creative of a story. And I think that that's something which is missing a lot. I know we talk a lot about tech, we talk a lot about gear, we talk a lot about all of these things, but it's like, you know, how to put it, and I'm talking about my genre, but it's like very much in terms of like, how are we putting a story together, or, you know, why have we got all these characters in, and what creates, you know, the narrative in terms of like the end product, you know, what is going to sell this brand, again, because I'm commercially orientated. So it's very much, I think there's a lot of that that's a little bit missing in terms of like, you know, what you're seeing out there, especially with young photographers. And it's just get, you know, learn about creativity and storytelling, and, you know, what makes a story, and, you know, how to, you know, bring things together. We don't use mood boards. I know that sounds like a weird thing, but it's like well, we never sort of go and look for references, or we'll never do this, or we'll never do that. It's like, initially, if I ever meet a new makeup artist or whatever, I mean, now obviously the team that I know, they know me. It's like, we'll have like a saying, or, you know, a poem, or a feeling, or a vibe, or whatever it is, or here's the story. But it's not like, oh, okay, you know, this is what we've seen on Instagram, or this is what we've seen on Pinterest, or and it can be quite difficult for someone who doesn't, you know, who's new to working with me and working with my team. And I'm always like, no, that's, you know, we don't look at other things. We're here to create something totally fresh and some totally new. And I mean, look, sometimes we fail. I mean, this is life, you know. Sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, it didn't really work out so well, in which case you get back up and you bounce back up and you're like, okay, let's go again. But I think that's when the magic really happens. I think that, you know, doing mood boards and doing too many inspirations and looking, you know, obviously you need to look, you need to learn 100%. But you need to focus on your own creativity, your own voice, your own, you know, your own vision. And I think that if you look at, you know, the photographers here today, everyone's kind of, you know, you can see it's like there's such strong visual identities within the work. It's just all amazing. So I'd like to see less. I'd like to see less cousins.
Right. Well, that sounds like a particularly good time to wrap it up. You know, you don't really want to play the game that the whole family can get involved in.
No, exactly. Like, no.
Listen, guys. Thank you so much for your time, Emma, Tarryn, Ingrid, Melanie, and Grethe. I really appreciate your insights, and you know, hopefully we can move a little bit more in a more positive direction. If for the people watching this, if you do have any questions that we haven't answered, just feel free to put them in the comments below. We have got a few that you know that we've seen as we've gone through. But yeah, thank you for watching as well. Please feel free to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Then you'll know when we put up content, and the next time we have a live panel discussion like this, you know, we can carry on going. So, ladies, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing more of your work now that I've added you to my 5 million Instagram things that I need to scroll through every day. But I enjoy seeing the work. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Quentin.
Yes.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Quentin. Bye, guys. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.